We are live. Welcome to 2026, Dave.
Back again.
We go away for a couple weeks, all hell breaks loose. I mean, my God.
This could easily be a 7-hour show.
I know. So here's our deal with the people watching. We're going to talk exclusively about fraud in Minnesota today. We have so much material to go through, and we're not going to talk about the stuff going on in Minneapolis where there was a shooting yesterday. We're not going to talk about that. We're just going to talk about fraud today because we have so much to cover, and there's so much, like he said, we could do 7 hours of this if we covered everything. So I'm ready to go. What about you, Dave?
Yeah, I think we might as well head down that road.
And so the first thing is, we're going to talk about this first. I'm trying to do a flow to the show, and I just had a couple minutes to do this because I'm getting slammed at work. So we're going to talk about Tim Walz not running for governor again for a third term. What do you think about that, Dave? You happy about that, or are you sad?
I think this fraud thing actually, there was some good things that came out of it, and this is it.
We talked about this a long time ago, and what we said was, we're so glad Kamala Harris picked Tim Walz to be her running mate, because what it did was it finally forced some of the local news organizations, the Minnesota news organizations, to focus on what Tim has been doing. We've been railing about this for years, and people just didn't know about it. And when he went into the national spotlight, behold, everything was revealed. And ever since then, he has been getting hit after hit after hit until it came to this. And then this kid, Nick Shirley, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, put out a video with somebody else exposing the fraud that's been going on in the state for the last 7 years. Yep. Coincidentally, the time that Tim Walz took over as governor. So I'm very happy.
Which is strange because like if you go down to this Twin Cities news programs, the radios, they were going back and showing, hey, we exposed this stuff before Nick Shirley did.
Yes.
But they didn't continue on with it. And
right.
Because now that Walz was in the national spotlight, people were actually paying attention to it.
Correct. And we'll go through that. We have some links at the very bottom. Some articles from 2019 talking about cases of cash, millions of dollars, like $1 million suitcase cash leaving and going to the Middle East. So we're going to get to that kind of near the end of this as we try to narrow down to it. But I thought the interesting thing about Walz dropping out too was, did you see his concession speech or his speech that he gave that said, I'm not going to do this anymore?
Just a little bit of it.
He starts a little bit of it, and then he just goes into an all-out Trump attack. So it's not about him. It's not about the fraud that's happening in the state. It's all about how Donald Trump is being mean to him, and he has to cry about that. So you can play this if you can get the bandwidth for. And I can't hear it.
And we turn the volume up.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to work for your computer. It doesn't work ever. But anyway, he goes on to just talk about how Donald Trump is being bad. He's being mean to him.
The war that's being waged against.
Yeah, we'll skip him.
Yeah. So 1 second, and I will try to do it. One second, and we will post this up. We actually have some viewers waiting for this, so hopefully this won't take me too long here. Here we go.
This is a decision that I make with my family. And certainly I think, as I said, it's the right decision. I'll note, I think it's appropriate we're here today. The war that's being waged against Minnesota, you're seeing it. We have a ridiculous surge of apparently 2,000 people not coordinating with us that are for a show of the cameras. I'm going to note to all of you, today is January 6th. There's no debate what happened. The President of the United States led an insurrection.
So right there, he just said the president of the United States led an insurrection.
Yeah.
Number one, that was 5 years ago. Number two, he did not lead an insurrection. Number three, Tim's talking about this so you don't notice that it's all about the fraud and the wasted money from Minnesota that he is in charge of.
Against a fair election to try and overturn that and, report both sides of this. Well, he said he really didn't, and courts convicted 400 of them and he pardoned them. No, he did that.
All right. I'm done listening to this guy.
Yeah.
So
He's not that interesting.
So the other thing is, then he had to say that it was white supremacy while they're going after these people for fraud in here. And this is another interesting thing. I mean, he's so desperate to divert from his own shortcomings. So let me just play this one here. Oh, you got it?
We'll see if it works.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
For their own benefit. This is what happens when.
Okay, just take it out.
I'll kill him. There we go. Much better.
This is what happens when they scapegoat. And this is what happens when they no longer hide
Can you hear
the
me?
idea of white supremacy.
Yep.
Where the Vice President of the United States talk about now white people won't have to apologize for being white. That's never happened once in my whole damn life. And I think everybody in this room knows what they're doing. So we're here today to say enough of this. We're here today to stand that Minnesota will protect their neighbors. So
yeah, here's the thing. They have a video of white people apologizing for being white. There's a whole thing of actors going through and say, I take responsibility. So this is, again, Walz trying to throw a shiny ball across the room because it's, he can race bait. He can Trump bait. He's just crazy guy going after people because he screwed up. It's his administration. They made it easy for this fraud to happen. They clearly weren't checking on places. And we're going to go through that in just a little bit of the Somali fraud. But Tim now is being kicked out, which is good.
And we can go through that corruption with him and Klobuchar down the road too. So,
well, I think Klobuchar is not clean out of this either, I guess. I haven't seen the evidence against her, but they are coming here, and they sent a lot of agents here, and the Department of Justice is taking it very seriously. It's so nice to see Minnesota in the spotlight. Maybe says stuff will get cleaned up, because we've talked about this before, but the elections here, if this is kind of fraud is happening inside of our systems, how can you say that the elections are secure here? And I haven't believed that we've really had a fair election here since Al Franken got elected, because they found ballots in somebody's trunk of their car.
right.
So they'd counted the votes, he had lost, and suddenly he said, oh, this guy showed up. He's got these ballots in the trunk of his car. Okay, let's count them. Didn't have any kind of key to where they'd been, who'd had access to them. And then all of a sudden he won the election. So,
Right.
and then this is the last one here is Tim Walz's daughter, Hope, cannot shut up. So she's out there talking about how, they were getting threatened and, how dare you? The problem is that, she's going to get that when she's putting herself in the spotlight, and she is putting herself in the spotlight. She wants to talk about this to everybody. And of course she wants to talk about people who are Republicans, and she can't see it. I mean, she's too close to her dad to probably see the corruption that's going on. And whether he's corrupt or incompetent, you have to pick which one it is. He's one of the two, if not both, right?
Correct.
So Tim and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison have been criminally referred to the Department of Justice for investigation and prosecution over the Somali fraud scandal. So when we're talking about the Somali fraud scandal, that picture of Tim is my favorite. It just kind of captures his essence, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's complete deer in headlights there.
That's right. Keith Ellison, since Donald Trump got reelected, Keith Ellison is the Attorney General of Minnesota, but he doesn't spend any of his time on Minnesota. He spends his time filing lawsuits against the federal government and the Trump administration. And also, Keith was caught or not, recorded talking to Somalians saying, we're going to fix this. Don't worry about it, because they're his big supporters.
Right.
So here's how the cycle works if you don't understand it. They set up these daycare centers, and the Somalians have come over here, and I don't think they're doing this on their own. They've been coached into this, I believe. They set up a daycare center, and I heard of one where one woman had 4 kids. Her sister had 4 kids. They opened up a daycare right next to each other. One took care of her sister's 4 kids. The other one took care of her other sister's 4 kids. And they got hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. The state sends the daycare center the money, not the parents of the people's kids. They send the daycare centers the money. Then they don't check on how many kids are in there, how many meals they're serving, what the location is. And this is what this Nick Shirley came out, and he just showed up. He showed up at these daycare centers and said, nobody's here. These places are supposedly getting 30, 40 kids in here. There's nobody here. So then the Democrats fund those. Those people turn around, take that money, ship it wherever, and then they also go through and send the money to the Democratic Party. So it's kind of a circle here of cash going out of the Democrats from the state to the daycare center, out to Somalia, back into the Democratic Party so that they can open up more daycare centers, and the circle completes. We talked about this, and we've been talking about this for a couple of years before we had a split House. So last year, the House got elected and it split down the middle, 67-67, I believe. And that was the first time. So before that, the Democrats had a trifecta. They had total control of the government in Minnesota. They had the governor, the Senate, the House. The Supreme Court has all been elected or appointed by a Democratic governor. They have the cities, everything. So they passed this huge omnibus bill and had a lot of this stuff happening. So now that they had a split vote, they finally started taking this just a little bit seriously last year because the Republicans were forcing them to.
Right.
Before that, if you talked about fraud to somebody here, they laughed at you. They said there's absolutely no fraud, and they wouldn't even talk about it. So now they've got a split House. They start taking it seriously. The Senate, the Minnesota Senate votes 60-6, I think, to create an independent auditor, attorney. I can't remember the term for it, but it's an independent attorney to do the auditing.
Correct.
60-7. Huge bipartisan support. I think it was introduced by a Democrat because they wanted somebody to investigate the fraud. It went to the House because there's no majority in the House and it's split. The Democrats wouldn't allow that to come up for a vote. So it just died before the end of the session. Now they had to try to sneak it in at the end of the session because the Democrats didn't show up for work the first couple of weeks because they would have had a minority because one of the guys that got elected as a Democrat was fraudulent. He got kicked out and they had to have a special election. So the Democrats didn't even show up to work until they guaranteed themselves being able to stop every vote that the Republicans wanted. So that's where we're at now. That's how the cycle works. And that's what we're seeing constantly. So now the Department of Justice is coming to hopefully take care of this. Wouldn't that be nice? Because I keep hearing different numbers. I don't know what you've heard, Dave. At first we just heard about the $250 million Feeding Our Future scandal.
Yeah.
Then it started going up to nearly $1 billion. And then I heard $2 billion. Then I heard $9 billion. And then I heard it could be up to $90 billion over the course of many years. That's money, and that's not money staying here. I mean, if you want to look at a silver lining for corruption within the United States, at least the money stays here and it goes somewhere. This money is literally being funneled out of the money in cash, in bags of cash, out to the Middle East.
Except for the morons that were defrauding, were buying Rolls Royces, Bentleys, expensive houses, expensive watches. The kid who said his Bloomington daycare was robbed of all of his important information. He was wearing $2,250 eyeglasses.
Really?
Yeah, because they found it. Someone found it online. His eyeglasses. So they weren't smart enough to not flaunt their wealth. So some of the money did stay here to to help out Minnesotans. But, I don't think there's a lot of Rolls Royce dealers in Minnesota as far as last I checked.
Not that I know of.
No.
Hey, we're getting some good comments. I love this. Governor should be arrested and charged. He is complicit in the fraud in Minnesota. He should be in jail waiting trial. That's absolutely correct. I believe that 100%.
Well, that's the thing is, they've talked about throwing him in jail, but for what? Incompetence isn't a crime. So what actual crime did he commit? Did he line his pockets?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's what we got to find out is if he was actually stealing, throw him in jail. But incompetence is not. Unfortunately, we can't throw him in jail for his incompetence.
Well, you wouldn't want to either, right? If you're incompetent in your job, you should get fired. You shouldn't go to jail for it. And that's politics right there. But if they can tie something to him doing this to get money back. Now, honestly, if you ask me, I don't think Walz is trying to get money back to himself. I don't think he's doing that. I could be wrong, and that's what they're going to find out with the investigation. That's why there has to be an investigation.
Well, we found some stuff later in the show about the daycares giving back millions back to the DFL.
Right. And so the hard part is that's all fog of war. It's hard to trace that back into actually who's doing that. And
right.
The problem is I don't think people come from another country and figure out how to do this right away. I think they're being coached how to do this. If they can find that, that would be great. We had another comment here. Fraud has been found. It needs to be investigated for sure. Both sides of the House would agree to that. I hope so. But the fact of the matter is there was an opportunity to appoint somebody to look into the fraud, and they stopped it from happening. So why did they do that? I don't know. I can't. You don't know what in the mind of these people, but they absolutely did stop that from happening.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then, so they started doing an audit, and the Minnesota Department of Human Services backdated or created documents after the audit began, after the request for information. So they were going for more than $425 million in grants under 830 unique grant agreements, including 590 grants to non-governmental organizations. In one case, BHA paid $670,000 to a guarantee for a single month of work. But the grantee could not provide documents to support the payment, and then a state grant manager who approved the payment left to go to work for the grantee. That seems like fraud, right? That seems
right.
like and I know that when they came down to it, and they were talking about this audit, they said, hey, you know what? We can't guarantee this audit because of this. You can't create documents after this request for documents, because then it's just you're building the documents you need. Kind of reminds me of that place that got robbed of all their important documents. Somebody came in and robbed a daycare of all their important documents. Who would do that?
Right.
What are you getting out of it? You're not getting any cash. You're not getting anything beneficial out of you. Okay. All right. Dr. Oz orders a full-scale federal audit of Minnesota Medicaid. So this is a little different slant. This isn't Somalian stuff, but this is a Medicaid thing. And what he wants to do is restore the integrity of the Medicaid program. And to do that, the Minnesota must provide CMS with weekly updates on how the state is stopping fraud, freeze enrollments of all high-risk providers for 6 months, confirm all providers in place are legitimate or remove them. And that's the step that has been slowly stopping, not happening around here. And then send CMS a corrective action plan for how these will prevent this from happening again. If we are unsatisfied with the state's plans or cooperation, we'll stop paying the federal shares of these programs. So that's a big deal, right? We're going to stop getting Medicare payments. The problem is it's all very loose, right? Give me a weekly update how the state is stopping it. Well, we're looking into it. Send a corrective plan. We're going to look into it. Hopefully they have a little more teeth and some timelines of this.
Yeah, but at least, it does boil back down to, at least now they're getting attention, so someone's investigating. Now they're starting to do something about it.
Correct.
And that's the
Right.
main thing, is someone's actually going to look into what's going on here.
Yeah, it's been frustrating for years here because we seem like such small potatoes. We don't get any attention. And if we don't get the attention, nobody does it. So you're not going to get it internally. You need the federal government to come and do it.
Right.
So here's a great one. Homeland Security investigators are going door to door to collect evidence. And that's what the surge was. They surged 2,000 agents here. And that is, part of it is not, this isn't ICE. This is separate from ICE. This is to investigate the fraud and going and finding all the places. So the federal government is going and finding these places, going to these daycares and checking them out. That's great. That's fantastic. Because we can't trust, unfortunately, we can't trust the Minnesota legislature, not the legislators, but the officials to do this. All right. What's up next? Homeland Security going door to door. Overview of the sprawling fraud scandal that's gripped Minnesota. The Trump administration has moved to freeze all federal child care funding to Minnesota, which completely makes sense with the number of millions and billions of dollars that have been going on in here. School meals program. Prosecutors called the largest ever case of pandemic aid fraud. Fraudsters billed at least $250 million worth of meals they did not serve. That must be the Feeding Our Future one, right?
Yeah.
The child care centers, the program highlighted by the Shirley video. That place was tagged in 2019 with an independent audit for issuing $71.6 million in potentially fraudulent payments. Wow, that's
And that was
2019.
2019. That was the thing, 2019, and they didn't do anything about it. It just made it worse.
In August, Walz administration shut down a program that used Medicaid dollars to help vulnerable populations cover housing costs after unearthing credible allegations of fraud against 77 providers.
And that's where Dr. Oz comes in.
And
the
then
Medicaid.
Autism centers, the autism program ballooning price tag in 2024, the state official in charge responded by noting the rise was consistent with cost increases in the housing stabilization program. And I think it went up by some ungodly number of percent, right?
Yeah, Minnesota was the highest in the U.S. And we showed it on a previous episode, but I can't remember the exact number that it was. It was just crazy high compared to everybody else.
So, some people are saying that you're racist because you're going after Somalians here. We're not going after Somalians, or they're not going after Somalians because of their race. They're going after them because they're coming in from a country and they are the ones committing this fraud. I don't think they're the only ones. Like I said, I don't think they came up with this on their own. I just don't think you're savvy enough to come into a country and rip it off right away. I know we're caring here. I know we like to take care of people in Minnesota, and we're kind of naive because we're not a big city or a state. But, they're being picked on because they're the ones committing the fraud.
Right.
And it said, I have a link here, and we'll put all these links in our comments at the end of this so you can kind of verify what we're talking about or disprove it, because we're not doing the vetting of these links. Overall households, over 80% of Somali immigrant households overall receive some form of welfare benefits in analysis of past data. Households with children, nearly 90% of Somali households with children in Minnesota were reported to receive welfare benefits. 90% of Somali households with children receive welfare benefits. Now, if you go to another country, you shouldn't receive any of those kind of benefits.
Right.
That's people who worked here, paid in. We're here to help the people here, and you should be getting it from your own country, not coming over here.
Well, that's the thing is when you were raised, you were taught how to brush your teeth and comb your hair and wash the car, and they're taught how to live off the state. Because we'll show later in the episode about the most corrupt government in the world is Somalia, and that's basically what they're being taught, is how to rip off the government for your own personal gain.
Yeah, I mean,
like
it's a cultural thing, right?
Correct. Yep.
They don't view that as a bad thing. That's how you do it. I don't know. I'm not speaking for what they are, but I would think that if that's the ingrained in your government, ingrained in the system of work, that will get ingrained in all of you. And then it's very hard to break out of that once it's in there.
Right. That's just part of their culture.
And then the other frustrating thing is the politicians, especially in Minneapolis and the governor, who are, I'll play this one, Dave, because I'm going to play the sound for it. They seem to be just bending over backwards to accommodate them, the Somalians. I don't understand it. I mean, you don't have to be against the Somalians, but you don't have to just sit there and I'm going to play this clip here of the Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota. And this is, I think this could be AI. I'm not sure.
My name's Peggy Flanagan. I am the Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, and I'm really honored and humbled to be here with all of you today. I am incredibly clear that the Somali community is part of the fabric of the state of Minnesota. I think about my friendship with Nimco. We've been friends for almost 25 years. And when I think of being part of Minnesota and growing up here, the Somali community has always been a part of my Minnesota. So I want to just encourage the community to know that we're with you. We've got your back. I am here shopping today, and just encourage other folks to show up, support our Somali businesses, support our immigrant neighbors. And I know that things are scary right now. And just know that there are more people who are looking out for you. There are more people who are here to support you than you know. I will continue to stand with the Somali community to be with you and to do all I can to return the friendship and community that the Somali community has shown me. Thank you.
I have never seen a video that says what she's going to do for Minnesotans.
Right.
She goes out of her way to put on the Habib, to go on there and talk about how Somalians are the fabric of the community. Well, they've only been here since Obama placed 80,000 of them into the very concentrated area in Minneapolis. When you put a concentrated group of people from another place with a completely different sort of government, they will start voting themselves into office, which is just about happened in Minneapolis as the mayor. And, okay, they didn't win this time, but look at who you got. You got Jacob Frey, the guy that's been responsible for Minneapolis since the George Floyd stuff.
Right.
And I got somebody saying that was Bill Clinton and Bush. Is that, I think what they're saying is this is who put the Somalians here. I think Obama put a lot of them here. But we will see. All right, so let's go on. There is a X post here. Can you pop this one up, Dave?
Yep.
So this one is apparently 3 Somalian daycares in one photo. So we're going to pop this up and show. So you see them?
Lovely.
Tough to get in that door, I would think. But
yeah.
And I don't know how many they had, but that's probably not true. And
well, because even Nick Shirley, he went to the daycares and there was actually a front door to him.
There was a front door. Nobody was inside.
Right.
There was a front door.
But there was, there's a front door at least that you would walk into. So
right. Apparently, so I got another post, a link I'll post here. Immigrants in Somalia have been buying homes in Minnesota, paying cash, and saying they're being used as home health care. And the state isn't checking on the homes. Many sit empty and are billed to the state for services, making millions a year. So I'll post a link to that. That's basically what we've been talking about here. This one here says, in her community alone, Somalians have bought up over 455 homes. They buy these homes claiming they're turning these homes into home health care centers. She says the way we know Somalians have bought these homes is because all of a sudden extremely nice cars start showing up. Mercedes, BMW, this is cars parked away. That's like going to the gym when college students are in town.
Yeah.
And then she said, by law, the state will not come out and inspect these homes and make sure these homes have been by law. My God.
Why wouldn't they're supposed to be, working on the fraud? Why wouldn't they come out and see what's going on? You're
Right.
supposed to check into it. I mean, just like the daycares. The daycares are supposed to be open at a certain hours during the day, and if it was a certain level of kids there, they were required to have a playground.
Right.
So someone needs to inspect those before they can even open. So, there's got to be an inspection process somewhere.
If you're not going to be a good steward of our money, why should we
Right.
give it to you? We try to help people, and this is what we get. We get ripped off. Watch these guys become multimillionaires, and we're, trying to struggle to pay for health care in this state. Here's another interesting article here, a Minnesota Somalian sentencing list. And then if you take a look at it, so we are getting sentencing done here. They are taking care of some of this problem, but that's closing the door behind when the horse is already out.
Right.
We're out of that money, and it's not coming back.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're not getting our money back because even the head of the feeding our future, she, they took her Porsche back and they took $3 million out of her account. Well, we're only, she took $50 million. So
Right.
So we just lost, the state lost $45 million basically. So our property taxes have to go up. The schools miss out. The police aren't around. Fire department isn't around.
Right.
It all comes back down to, we're missing out of stuff because someone else is stealing it.
So we got a thing here that is the most corrupt countries in the world. I just found a way to show it.
Yeah.
Somalia is number one, and I don't know who's. It says the source is transparency something, so I can't tell you the source. So let's just go on this as if it's the true list. Somalia is number one. Venezuela is number two. Yeah, they might be notching down right now. Venezuela's got some stuff going on. South Sudan, Syria, Yemen. That's because that's that culture.
Yeah, but how can South Korea be on there? Or sorry, North Korea is number 9.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because if you're corrupt over there, they just wipe you out. So
Well, it depends on who's corrupt, right?
true.
So if it's the guy in charge, then it's not corruption.
Correct.
And then one interesting thing is, the daycare. The state of Minnesota had this child care licensing list. They took it down. That's what they've done a bunch of times now. When people find fraud or they start investigating things, they just take down the site that they were being used to provide the data for what's going on.
Yeah. So there's your corruption right there. Just hide the truth.
Right. So now Nick Shirley comes out with this video, right? And people are like, well, where is the news media on this? Where are you guys? Why aren't you reporting on this? Well, we have 2 links here that I'll put, and I'm going to play the second one. But it is Fox 9 down in the Twin Cities in 2019 came out with these news stories. So let me share this one because it's very interesting.
We've been investigating what appears to be rampant fraud in a massive state program. A fraud suspected of costing Minnesota taxpayers as much as $100 million a year. Our reporting is based on public records and nearly a dozen government sources who have direct knowledge of what's happening. These sources have a deep fear, and there's evidence to support their concerns that some of that public money is ending up in the hands of terrorists. We begin at Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport.
So let me just stop it there for a second. First of all, I want to mention that it's 66 degrees outside this day. God. Wouldn't that be nice? All right, sorry, that one.
Where mysterious suitcases filled with cash have become a fairly common carry-on. It's the morning of March 15th. We're chasing a tip about a man who's leaving the country. Our sources tell us he just took a carry-on bag through security that was packed with $1 million cash. You can do that as long as you fill out one of these government forms. We're told these cloak and dagger-like scenarios now happen almost weekly at MSP International. The money is usually headed to the Middle East, Dubai, and points beyond.
So this is 7 years ago. See that down here?
Yeah.
So why wasn't this taken care of 7 years ago? If alarm bells aren't going off because millions of dollars in cash is being funneled out of the airport, what were the officials doing at this time? And who was governor at that time? That was Walz. This news article shows up. Somebody should have noticed. Somebody should have done something, but they did nothing. And that's, you're paying the price now, Walz, because people can't take it seriously.
Right.
But
Yeah,
he said,
that's his job.
yeah. But that being said, this is Walz's comeback. His comeback is, I've been working for years against this. Worked for years to crack down on fraud. So either he didn't do that, or he's very, very bad at his job. And since it took them until last year to even try to vote in an independent auditor for the state, that means people weren't taking this seriously. And
Right.
since it didn't pass the House, those people aren't taking it seriously. You should ask, if you live in Minnesota and you're represented by one of the people that voted against that, ask them why. Maybe they have a reasonable explanation, but I don't think they do. The concerns they brought up at the time were kind of lame. I mean, they were like, well, there's, you already have some auditors that do that kind of stuff. I don't want them stepping on their toes. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. 7 years of this stuff, at least. And that was when they found it. That's when they reported on it. How long was it going on before that?
Right. I mean, didn't in one of these elections we vote for a state auditor? I mean, what is that person doing?
Yes. I don't know.
What is their actual job then? If they're not making sure this stuff is doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
That's, obviously it's Walz's problem because he's not overseeing it, but we elected an auditor to do that exact job to make sure the money is being spent wisely. But
right. So yeah, there's lots of people like not doing their job, and there's lots of people to blame. And it should be that, like you were talking about, you can't get put to jail for incompetence, and you shouldn't be, but you should get fired for it. And if that's the same thing you're looking at now, you've got elected, got election coming up in November, start getting rid of some of the people that were there, either in the primary or in the general election. But this is attributed to Mark Twain, but he didn't actually say it. But he said, politicians like diapers should be changed often and usually for the same reason. So let's
Right.
get new elected officials that haven't been there for 4 to 8 years and haven't been doing anything about this. Let's get some new people in that will take this seriously.
yeah, because small fry is doing it.
A Minnesota residential facility employee can vouch for unlimited faculty residence. Healthcare facility voting can be administered 35 days before election day. So this is the persistence, Scott Pressler finding this out. So now Scott Pressler is getting interested in Minnesota. And I like that because that guy made a big difference in Pennsylvania, and maybe he can make a big difference in Minnesota too.
Yeah, it's amazing how just everyday people could come in and do more in hours than our government can do.
Right. And then for a final thing, which isn't necessarily fraud, but sure smells like it's going to be, it's going to be set up the same way. This is set up for fraud.
This is our future fraud. We're going to do a show in a couple of years about how many millions of dollars were defrauded out of Minnesota because of this.
Yeah. So they created the Minnesota Paid Leave Act. They didn't implement it until January 1st. And then they had an estimated of 130,000 estimated approved claims in Minnesota this year. They had 18,000 people apply for it the first day. And there's an area here where you can double dip. So say you went on maternity leave last year at the end of the year, you can go and qualify again for up to 20 weeks of paid leave. And how are they funding this? And I don't know if people understand this. They're funding this by taking a tax out of your paycheck. They're also doing their employer, but you're paying for it.
Right.
And here's the best part. They estimated that it was going to take up 1.13% tax to do this, but they taxed it at 0.88. So going into the first year, they're underfunded to begin with. So they don't implement it right away. Then they implement it the first of this year. They passed this like 2 years ago.
Yep.
And now next year or the year after, you're really going to get reamed by this tax. And are you going to take this time off? Most people won't take it off. They like the idea of having it off, but they will not take it. So, and then, who suffers the most is daycares, nursing homes, places that have skilled workers that have to lose their employee and then take another person in and train them while that person is out for up to 20 weeks, which is about 5 months, 4.5 months. And then when they're done, they have to accept that person back in, and the person they've just spent all this time training goes away. And that's just wasted money. But most of our legislators don't understand that because they've never owned a business or run a business or had a budget in their life. They're community activists or firefighters, and God love the firefighters, but that doesn't mean they know how to run a business.
Yeah, they need to change the name of this Family Leave Act to Don't Hire a Female Under 40 Act.
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah, it doesn't have a good flow to it, but at least it's honest.
Yeah.
Because, if you know that she's going to, you're going to hire a female under 40 and she's going to have kids in the future, you're going to lose her for 5 months.
That's true.
And you're not going to take that risk. So talk about, people's rights, women's right to have kids. They just shot themselves in the foot because, it looks good on paper. This is a typical Democrat thing, is it looks good up front. But if you look at the long-term effects, it's worse because they're not going to want to hire someone a female under 40 that's going to instantaneously be gone for 5 months.
Right. Well, they think they're helping people and they're giving out charity, but it's not charity when you take money from one person and give it to somebody else. It's theft.
That's theft. Yep.
These kind of things should be done with charities and not the government. Government should be responsible for basic stuff: roads, firefighters, police, general welfare, things that are like staples. Everything else should be done through charities. And if you have a good idea for a charity and want to get people rallied up and you think everybody's going to be for it, it shouldn't be any problem to earn the money or raise the money that you need for the charity.
Correct.
But that's not the government's role. And as soon as you keep making the government's role, we just keep getting more and more money into it. And you get these programs set up so that there can be fraud because somebody's got to administer it. And then you got a staff, and that staff is going to get paid more every year. It just is an endless cycle. And people don't either see that or don't care. One of the two.
Or their hands are tied because if they're they're going to be honest about it and follow what the state law is. But if the state law says you can't investigate it,
Right.
then what are they supposed to do? They can, they have to, call Nick Shirley to do a video. They have to get the word out, even though their hands are tied. They can't. So
Yeah.
it's back to poor, the representatives not putting in these fail safes.
It can't come down to an independent YouTuber finding this stuff and having to do it. This has got to
Right.
be elect officials that will do this. Elect officials you trust to look out for us, the people of Minnesota. And if you're an advocate, you shouldn't be in government. You should be working for a charity and advocating for that charity.
Correct.
I'm going to move down to the word of the day here, but we have some things that we have to preface it with. So if you've seen this, you can pop that link up. We had one of the places here called the Quality Leering Center. And I'm sure everybody's heard this by now because, we've been off for a couple of weeks, so this is kind of old news, but it was investigated more than a dozen times by Minnesota's Department of Human Services between 2019 and 2023, resulting in 95 violations, yet it still received more than $8 million. And this is Nick Shirley reporting on this. You don't have to play the video. And it also says that this Leering Center got $1.9 billion overall. $1.9 billion. So what we need to do is stop giving money to these daycare centers and these learning centers. Stop the NGOs. If we're going to help people, send it directly to them, either through tax breaks or money directly to people. If this is for kids, to the people with kids. Send the money to them and let them figure out where they're going to send their kid to get education.
Right.
That takes care of most of the fraud, I think, right there. Plus, a couple other stipulations. You have to be a U.S. citizen to get this. And number two, you've had to have lived here for at least, let's say, 5 years. Let's put some sort of age on it or a timing on it so that you don't just move to the state and start mooching off the state right away.
Right.
It's the only way I can see that we can stop this kind of fraud. Here's a TDS treatment center would be quite lucrative. I think you're right. TDS being Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. You'd have a lot of people come into that thing in this state. Whew.
It'd be good in a blue state, though, definitely.
Well, that's what we are, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're the two conservative, not the two conservatives. We're one of the only conservative voices in Minnesota, though. So the word of the day, Dave came up with this, is leering. Dave, take us through leering.
Let me pull that up so I can get the correct. Okay, here it is. It describes the act of casting a sidelong, suggestive, or malicious look. So the Quality Leering Center was teaching you how to look at somebody in a suggestive or malicious way.
It seems like it's not something I would want to support.
Well,
I'm trying to get this thing saved off so we can view it.
I mean, if you think about it, if it's just a Somali one and they're wearing the full Habibs where you can only see their eyes, it would be good, good training for them to. I mean, I'm sure your wife can roll her eyes at you in many different ways, but you need to see her whole face to do that, to see what type of rolling her eyes she's doing. But this way, maybe, I don't know.
What I'm trying to figure out is how this place could get audited several times with 95 violations, audited 12 times, and nobody caught this. How is that even possible?
Yeah. And that's kind of why I threw that other thing up about the 10 worst charities in the United States. Because, I was going to do it before the holidays, but this is basically it was basically the same thing, and we'll get a list up eventually for that if you check the comments.
Okay.
But it if you're giving money to a charity, go look the charity up first to make sure that it's giving the money to the people that need it and not just lining their pockets.
Yeah.
The Cancer Fund of America, they gave 0.9% of the money directly to people who need it. That's not effective charities. So
No.
that, to me, that's fraud.
Here, I'll pop it up here. So
Okay.
this is what Dave's talking about here. Kids Wish Network raised 127.8, I'm guessing $1 million,
Yeah.
and then 109.8 paid to solicitors. 2.5% spent on direct cash aid.
Yeah. So the 2.5 of the money went to the kids. And that's, to me, that's fraud. So if you're donating money to any sort of charity, go look that charity up and make sure that charity is doing what it says it's supposed to be doing.
Right. That's really good. And you're better off going to a local charity and people you know, and so the money stays in your local community too. So find something in Duluth and donate to them. Even if it's, I don't care what the charity is, but you should be able to come here and say, yep, my money goes here. Where is it going? And you should be able to see the direct effects of it.
Correct.
Many of those charities don't have a lot of promotion because they don't spend it on it. I just had a conversation with a really good friend of mine. And she was like, yeah, I saw this place and you donate money, they'll send you a t-shirt. I don't want the t-shirt. I want you to take that money and put it towards what I'm sending you the money for.
Correct.
I understand the t-shirt is for advertising, so they maybe get more donations, but still, the point is, make sure the money you send is going to the place you think it should.
Because today was about fraud, and that is just, to me, that's the same thing. Is people setting up a charity to basically line their pockets,
Right.
and that was happening with the, Feed Our Future and all these different state programs.
Right.
It's to line your own pockets and not do the job that you said you were going to.
Right.
That's basic fraud.
Yeah. So I think that's going to wrap up for our show tonight. We will post links to all the stuff we talked about tonight in the comments when we post this from the live to the videos. So you can check that out. There's some interesting stuff on there. So check it out. May not all be real, but you decide. Anything else tonight, Dave?
No, I mean, like we said, we could, if we did a normal show, we could be here till, Sunday night.
Yeah.
With all the things that are going on, the Minneapolis shooting, the Venezuela becoming a U.S. property.
Iceland or Greenland?
Greenland, yeah.
Yeah.
So
We'll talk about that. We'll pick some of these things up next week. We'll see where they are. I did see one comment though that was kind of funny. It was on Saturday night, and somebody posted and goes, "Does anybody else understand that I'm nervous about going to bed because I might miss what happened overnight?"
Yeah.
After 4 years of Biden, and I know not everybody is a Trump fan, but after 4 years of Biden, I understand if you really, really hate Trump, what it was like, because we went through 4 years of this with Biden, and we saw absolute, what I consider the worst decision-making of my lifetime in those 4 years. So I get it. It's not fun, but you know what you got to do? You got to deal with it, just like we dealt with it. And we're going to have to deal with it again, because it's always not going to be good times like this. But we got to get through this together as opposed to fighting each other. And especially don't go and get in the way of an ICE agent, a federal agent, a police officer, anybody trying to do their job. That is not the way to handle yourself. Stay on the side. You want to protest? JD Vance said this today. Yell at your politicians and vote them out of office if you don't like them. Vote for who you want to be in office. That's the proper way to do it. That's what the First Amendment is for. So please don't try to take it upon yourself. If you get that rage, if you think you're raging and you can't think straight, step away and do not engage anybody, especially not an armed police officer. That's just good advice.
Yeah, I was reading on Facebook today someone I knew who was just discussing in his head if he should go down to the protests. And I'm thinking, to me, it was like, no, because you have a family to protect.
Mhm.
You don't know what's going to happen when you get down there. Like you said, you get that rage mentality within the group. You get that mob mentality. You don't know what dumb things going to happen. You don't know what dumb things you're going to do. And they have guns. Like
Yes.
you said, you don't like the way the politicians are doing something, you vote them out of office. That's the way America is.
Absolutely.
But don't get involved. Like I've said it 100 times. I'm kind of with the Ferguson crowd now, where we find out 2 months later about Ferguson, hands up, don't shoot. Never happened. We have the media wanting to be the first to report something, so they're just reporting things. Because I was watching CNN at the gym last night, and they weren't presenting both sides of the situation. Neither was Fox, really. But you don't know the truth of that situation, and you're not going to know the truth for a month or two. So if you're thinking about going down to that protest, why? You don't know the truth yet.
And are you going to make a difference? Are you really
Yes.
going to make a difference?
And you're as a parent, your goal is to protect your family. You cannot do that when you're dead.
It's very tough.
Yeah, it's very
You can
tough.
still
If you're
vote
in jail
Democrat.
or dead or so
You can
You
still
stay
vote Democrat, but you can't protect your family.
yeah. So yeah, clear our heads, wait till the truth comes out, till we actually know the truth. Like you said, vote the politicians out then.
Exactly.
That's the way we do things in America.
Right. And that's how we all stay safe and can be together. I'll
Correct.
tell you this, I know a lot of very liberal people and we get along just great. You know what we don't do? Don't talk politics. And we agree on 90% of the stuff, and that's just the way it is. So,
Right.
all right. I'm going to wrap this thing up, Dave. We got to get out of here. We're going to be out of here in less than an hour. So appreciate all the comments today. We got some good interaction, some spicy stuff, but otherwise pretty good. But we'll be back next week with kind of more of a regular show.
Yep.
Until
Back to
next
normal.
week. I'm Sean.
I'm Dave.
Here's a Shaka. Hang loose and be cool. See you next week.